Right friends, welcome back to Learning Space. This is English Comprehension and Vocabulary. Today we are going to deliberate open up petroleum marketing as well. This is editorial of the Economic Times, and tomorrow we are going to deliberate on the Hindu editorial. So tomorrow it is 20th April. So tomorrow we are going to deliberate on the Hindu editorial. So this is equity in debt. Today's editorial of the Hindu that will be discussed tomorrow. So today we are going to deliberate on this and open up petroleum marketing as well. This is Economic Times editorial of 17th April, and here the issue is from May 1st in 5 cities, from May 1 in 5 cities, this automotive fuel prices, they are going to be revised. This fuel prices like petroleum, like petrol, like diesel, they are going to be revised every day on an experimental basis in 5 cities. This is known as dynamic pricing, and later on across the country it is going to be implemented. At present, this pricing is being revised, or you can say prices are being revised once in a fortnight, or you can say 2 times in a month. In future, on an experimental basis, from May 1 in 5 cities it will be revised every day, and subsequently this will be expanded to the entire country. So please look into this. Indian Oil, Bharat Petroleum, Hindustan Petroleum, these 3 are in the public sector, and as far as oil marketing is concerned as far as oil marketing is concerned, these 3 account for almost 95% in the country. So 95% is held by these 3, and let us look at it. Is welcome that public sector oil retailers plan daily revision of automotive fuel prices in 5 cities from May 1. Subsequently, it will be extended to the entire country. That is why please go ahead with the nationwide rollout of the daily dynamic pricing policy planned later this year. So in future, it will be rolled out across the country. So here two words are there. One is rollout, other one is dynamic pricing. What is the meaning of rollout? Rollout means to make a new product or system available for the first time. Reliance Jio rolled out the telecom operations on pan-India basis last year. So this is one example for rollout. Rollout means when a product or service is launched for the first time only, that is known as rollout. So nationwide rollout is expected sometime later. Dynamic pricing means it is real time pricing. That means here petroleum products prices, or you can say crude petroleum prices, varies in the international market daily, and we import almost 70 to 80% for our requirements. So as it is dependent on imports predominantly, here this dynamic pricing, or the approach to get the cost of your product or service, that is highly flexible. So you can say the meaning of dynamic pricing is real time pricing, and it is an approach to get the cost of a product or service that is highly flexible. Oil price, today one rate may be there, crude oil price, tomorrow something else. So to track the price changes on the real time basis, this dynamic pricing is going to be introduced, right? Then it would be in line with global practice. Globally, the practice is dynamic pricing for petroleum products, and better align the going rates for crude oil imports with retail prices of petroleum products. So, and better align the going rates for crude oil imports with retail prices of petroleum products. So, alignment, that means if in the international market crude oil prices increases, then the prices of daily petroleum products will increase. If they are reduced, they will be reduced. So, what is meant by retail? The meaning of align is basically to get or fall in line, to change so as to have correct relationship with something else. Here you see the governance aspects must be aligned with social development, equity and growth. And if you want the meaning of difference between retail and wholesale, so this is retail when you are going to the petrol pump and purchasing 2 liters of diesel, that is example of retail. When you are purchasing one soap, that is example of retail. Wholesale means their minimum restriction will be there, that is meant for again B2B transaction, that means business to business transaction is basically wholesale, retail is business to customer, or B2C transaction is retail, B2B is wholesale, that means big businessmen will sell to small businessmen. So, this best price is example of wholesale, right. So, here he uttered this retail, retail means small petrol pumps where we go and take 2 liters of diesel, 2 liters of petrol. So, these are retail outlets. It is essential to do so. He is supporting the move, that means newspaper is supporting the move to determine domestic scarcity value. As much of our growing requirement of crude is met by way of imports. There is a scarcity. Scarcity means 70 to 80% we are dependent on imports. So, to arrive at the domestic scarcity value. So, the scarcity meaning is when the product is scarce or in short supply or shortage of labor. So, you can say scarcity of labor. One example you see in recent times, because of scarcity of labor, agricultural productivity decreased. So, scarcity means the state of being scarce or in short supply or shortage, right. Then, however, in tandem, what is the meaning of in tandem? In tandem means at the same time. Both groups should work in tandem to make this project successful. To make this project successful, all the departments must work in tandem. In tandem means at the same time. So, he is giving some more suggestion. However, in tandem, it is also vital to reform and overhaul market design for retailing. At present, 95% of retail is in the hands of 3 companies, IOCL, BPCL, HPCL. So, at present the system is not satisfactory. Now, it is the time to overhaul market design for retailing. The petrol pumps, almost 95% of the business is held by the public sector retail companies in the oil sector. So, this should be overhauled. So, however, that means he is giving one more suggestion in tandem at the same time. It is also vital, vital means very important or necessary. Please see here, vital means extremely important or necessary for success. Here, vitamins and minerals are vital for healthy living, right. So, vital means extremely important or necessary for success. Reform, making the changes in order to improve it. Overall, looking into the problems and ensuring required changes, looking into all the types of problems. So, the government is aiming at radical reforms that would change the grading system in the country. So, here make changes in order to improve it is reform. Then overhaul. Overhaul is analyzing it and improving the system. So, here reform means making the changes to improve it. Then overhaul is analyzing the total aspects. There may be some bad things, so there may be some unproductive things, there may be some excessive manpower somewhere, there may be some shortage of manpower. So, analyze all these aspects and act wherever necessary to improve the system, that is overhauling the system. So, overhauling the system means it has got much, in fact it requires lot more needs to be done to improve the system. In that sense only we use the word overhauling the system. And reform means some new reforms. Reforms means new economic policy is one reform. Similarly, bankruptcy code, that is another reform. So, these are examples of reforms. And overhauling means looking into the present drawbacks, looking into the loopholes and removing them is overhaul. So, reform and overhaul is required in the marketing of this retail outlets, or you can say marketing of petroleum products, right. Next one is the continuing policy of ring fencing retail sales of petro products exclusively for oil companies is both anachronistic and incongruous. What is the present policy? The present policy is the three companies, as I have already told you, retail sales is with three companies, 95% is with three companies. The present policy of ring fencing retail sales of petro products exclusively for oil companies. Now, if I want to sell oil, the policy is to be changed. At present, government policies are supporting, in fact, the three refining companies. So, government is supporting them and new entrant cannot enter because these three companies are ring fenced by the government. So, the present policy is outdated. I will come to the meaning of three words. Ring fencing. I gave three examples. Ring fencing is quite frequently used in economy. Ring fencing means insulating an entity from their parent company for risks. This is example number 1. Suppose HSBC Bank is there in our country, Citibank is there in our country. If Citibank collapses in New York, let us assume if Citibank collapses in New York, then the same Citibank in our country should not collapse. For that purpose, ring fencing is required. So, here insulating the entity from their parent company, then spending for the intended purpose. So, the amount dedicated for agricultural use must be ring fenced so as to prevent diversion of funds. So, ring fenced means basically to protect that entity. Here oil marketing companies are being ring fenced, that is why 95% of sale is by oil marketing companies. No interference from the executive on day-to-day functions. Third example is, you see, RPI must be ring fenced from the executive. That means no interference from the finance minister or the prime minister on the day-to-day functions. So, ring fencing is very important word. Next one is anachronism. What is meant by anachronism? If something is not appropriate to the present period. If something is not appropriate to the present period, that is anachronism. One example I will tell you, your friend's marriage is taking place. If you are taking a radio as a gift, that too AM radio, amplitude modulation radio as a gift to your friend, then it can be termed as anachronistic. Anachronistic means a thing belonging to or appropriate to a period other than that in which it exists. If you are giving radio as the gift 40 years ago, 30 years ago, it could have been the present valid gift, or you can say prized gift, but not now in the present juncture. So, anachronism means the things which are not appropriate for the present period, they are appropriate to the period other than the present period. So, some of our present day laws are of British era and anachronistic and ridiculous. Old penal code, in fact, most of the laws are in fact anachronistic. They are not for the contemporary period, they belongs to British era. And the other word is incongruous. You see, this is totally slum area. There 2-3 multi-story buildings are there. So, here the situation is somewhat incongruous. This multi-story apartment in this slum area looks incongruous. So, incongruous means unusual or different from what is around us or what is generally happening. So, please understand these 3 words, very, very important. Ring fencing, second one is anachronism, third one is incongruous. Incongruous means unusual or different from what is around or from what is generally happening. So, here at present the continuing policy of ring fencing, or you can say giving support to the oil marketing companies in this present day era, is both anachronistic. It is not at par with the present day times and incongruous. It looks something odd, right? So, let us go ahead. The next word is, it is also not as per the best international practice. It is also not as per the best international practice. Worse, it implies a huge national cost. Why the government is supporting oil marketing companies? The 3 companies having 95% market share, why the government is ring fencing these 3 companies? Please allow private players for selling oil. Given the large and fast growing domestic oil sector, India is now 3rd largest importer of crude. He is giving additional information to strengthen his viewpoint. Given the large and fast growing domestic oil sector, India is now the 3rd largest importer of crude. The tight effective monopoly in retail sales of petro products creates a scope for padding costs. Here you see imply. Imply means to communicate an idea without saying it directly. Imply means communicating the idea without saying it directly. Rajesh asked for increasing the fresh investment in the company, and Arun's silent implies his consent, right? And the next word is monopoly. Monopoly means a company or group having exclusive control over a commodity or a service. That is known as monopoly. In the business, monopolistic tendencies are not good for the economy, or from the customer perspective, monopoly is not good. Then this padding costs. Here the monopoly is with 3 companies. Padding costs means extra costs added to an estimate because of various reasons. These are known as padding costs. So, extra costs added to an estimate because of various reasons like excessive inventory, these are known as padding costs. So, when the government is ring fencing these companies, they are adding extra costs and nobody is there to question them because of their monopoly. These 3 companies are enjoying monopoly and nobody is there to question them, and that's why they are adding padding costs. So, extra costs added because of one or the other reason are known as padding costs. Why they are adding padding costs? Because of the reason, in fact, they have monopoly, that's why they are adding padding costs. Abroad, in the mature markets, independent oil retailers account for about half the offtake of oil. So, in our country 95% is dominated by them. If you look at other countries, independent oil retailers account for 50% of offtake of oil, that means the sellers of oil. They are in fact they are independent of oil retailers, right. So, in the mature markets, independent oil retailers, they just purchase oil from the refiners and they sell the oil. Here what is happening? The refiners themselves are selling. Why are they not allowing the other person to come and sell the oil? So, in the mature markets, independent oil retailers account for half the offtake of oil, right. So, next one is, we need to speedily integrate oil into the larger retail industry, right. It would lead to more competitive oil prices at present. Because of a monopoly, they are adding padding costs, that is why the cost is increasing, and we need to speedily integrate oil into the larger retail industry. It would lead to more competitive oil prices, boost convenience and likely improve quality of service as well. When the monopolistic tendencies goes away, automatically it will improve the quality of service, reduce the costs, right. So, integration means the process of combining two or more things into one. In parallel, we also need speedy rationalization of taxes on oil. We have to rationalize taxes on oil. We are adding more and more taxes. In fact, excise duty on the petroleum products is quite high, and there is a need for rationalization of taxes. Rationalize means to make a company more effective, usually combining or stopping particular activities. So, to make a company more effective is basically rationalization. And one example you see, rationalization of subsidies is the need of the hour. We need to drop the perverse tax on tax. Perverse. What is the meaning of perverse? Perverse means somewhat strange and not what most people would enjoy. Under those circumstances, perverse is used. Rajesh is somewhat perverse and he refuses to agree with anything we say. Always he disagree. So, Rajesh is somewhat perverse. So, and he refuses to agree with anything we say. So, here more and more tax on the petroleum products are perverse in nature and cascading rates across the value chain in oil. So, cascading effect. I will give you with one example. You see, you purchased a shirt, cotton, subsequently it goes to textile mill, subsequently it comes to shop, subsequently customer purchases it, and if the government is imposing, let us assume, if the government is imposing some tax here on cotton, some tax here on textile mill, some 5% tax here, like that, if the government, maybe some taxes by central government, some taxes by state government, when they are imposing like that, what will happen? It will lead to cascading effect or tax on tax. Ultimately, the product cost will increase. That is known as cascading effect, right. So, in the value chain is linkage between supplier, manufacturer, retailer, customer. So, in the value chain, if number of taxes are imposed by the center as well as the states at each and every stage of manufacturing, at each and every stage of distribution, then what will happen? The costs will increase. So, that is known as cascading effect. This is very, very important word. Today's lecture has got several important words. Anachronism is one word, and cascading effect, tax on tax, at the same time value chain. So, these things are very, very important. And here cascading rates, we need to drop the perverse tax on tax and cascading rates across the value chain in oil. Petroleum products are to stay out of the goods and services tax framework. For now, at present, a decision was taken to keep petroleum products out of GST, but the GST Council needs to firm up consensus. In future, they have to come to the consensus or unified decision to bring petroleum products into GST regime at the earliest. At the earliest, that means as early as possible. Ultimately, they have to bring GST into the petroleum products also to be brought under GST. However, it would be sensible to duly cap input tax credits for oil products to factor in externalities like pollution and impact on climate change. So, this input tax credit I will explain you in some other lecture because it requires a lot more time, and here it would be sensible to duly cap means to duly restrict input tax credits for oil products to factor in externalities like pollution and impact on climate change, right. So, with this let us conclude today's lecture, and tomorrow we are going to deliberate on this equity in debt, right. So, this is today's 19th April and tomorrow is 20th April. Tomorrow we are going to deliberate this editorial with regard to the FRPM Committee Act NK Singh Committee recommendations. This is very important article. Tomorrow we are going to deliberate on this, right friends. Have a nice day. Thank you.